Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Schatz and Tanier FTN NFL podcast for Monday, November 20th, 2023, reviewing week 11 in the NFL and previewing a very big Monday Night Football matchup, Super Bowl rematch between the Chiefs and Mike's Philadelphia Eagles. I think we have Eagles stuff coming here. I am Aaron Schatz of FTNfantasy.com/DVOA. He is Mike Tanier of themessenger.com. Don't forget to also follow us on Twitter and Threads. We're on Threads a lot now. You can see below. I'm A Shots NFL. He's Mike Tanier. On both of those social media sites. Don't forget, if you are watching us live, which we do at Monday and Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, you can make comments and ask questions about what we are discussing or anything else from this week in the NFL. Although this week we will not be on Thursday because there is some sort of holiday you may have heard of. Therefore, we are going to be on Wednesday. So this week, Monday and Wednesday at 11 a.m. All right. So a couple weeks ago was upset week in the NFL. This was not upset week. This was not upset week in the NFL. Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, what is the overarching story that links this week's games? And the overarching story is that for the most part, the home teams won and the teams you would expect to win won. In fact, the top 10 teams in DVOA, 8 of them won, and the other 2 are playing tonight. So the teams you would expect to win this week won, and that does include the Cleveland Browns, who narrowly defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers in what was not a battle of offense. And I wanted to talk about that game a little bit because of the major disconnect that has developed between the public view of the Steelers offense and the way DVOA views the Steelers offense, which is somehow 14th in DVOA.
This is not the public view versus DVOA. This is DVOA against reality.
They are 28th in points per game, 28th in points per game. So what is going on here? Let's talk a little bit about. First of all, I went back and looked because I'm going to write for tomorrow about other teams with big discrepancies between points scored and offensive DVOA. And it turns out the team with the biggest discrepancy was the 1996 Chiefs, Marty Schottenheimer team.
Oh, boy.
Were somehow 5th in offensive DVOA despite being 24th. In points per game, and it was basically the same reasons behind this year's Steelers.
Turnovers?
Which is very, very low in turnovers and very hard schedule of opposing defenses. The Steelers have played the hardest schedule of opposing defenses in the league, and with a good gap between them and the rest of the league as far as the difficulty of the defenses that they have played. Right. They are, most advanced stat, like they're bad. They're 26th in yards per play. They're 23rd in success rate. There's a major lack of explosive plays. They don't trust Pickett at all. And I will say, like, the belief that their offense is actually a lot more average than you think is not meant to be my statement about Kenny Pickett's future as quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I also think that there is a little bit of everybody on social media trying to race to the bottom for having the worst quarterback in the league this year. No, my quarterback is the worst in the league. No, my quarterback is the worst. No, my quarterback. But given the way Pickett has limited turnovers, can you really say he's worse than Mac Jones or Bryce Young or Desmond Ridder or Zach Wilson?
Right. And I think there's a couple things here. And one is, when we talk about the Steelers being 26th or 27th in a lot of these categories, we forget how horrible the Panthers are. We forget how horrible the Giants are week in and week out. We forget how horrible the Patriots are week in and week out. It's hard to get to that bottom rung of offense in the NFL, considering how absolutely incapable.
There are just some really bad offenses this year. There just are.
Right. So if you came to me and said, well, the DVOA says the Steelers are 21st, I'd be like, okay, well, there's all these teams that can't do anything right, and then there's some turnover-prone teams, and then there's the Steelers. It's the fact that they're up there at 14th with the shocking. And when you talk about the race to the bottom in quarterbacks, Pickett's the one who was supposed to be, first-round pick, and then he took over the starting job, and he had a couple wins, and he's got these weapons, and he's supposed to be doing this thing. So there's none of the excuses are there. Well, you can look at Ritter and say, well, yeah, he was a third-round pick, and Arthur Smith's a ninny and things like that. You can look at all these other guys and say, well, this is that. Pickett's supposed to be up there, like in the top 15 of quarterbacks. Now, I don't know where DR rates him. I'm guessing it's
about average, partially because of big opponent adjustments, because they've played such a hard schedule of opposing defenses. I mean, without opponent adjustments, he's definitely below average, but he just doesn't turn the ball over very much, combined with the very hard schedule.
Right. And, Tomlin made a remark after the game, like, the Browns make every offense look like this. And it's like, no, they make every offense look a little weaker. They make, like, the Titans offense look like this. You're not – if you scored, 19 points, it might be defensible. You scored 10, and you couldn't get anything done in the fourth quarter. So, so the whole Pickett thing is you don't want to make a statement about his future. I still haven't seen the good Pickett game.
Right. No, what I'm saying is because I think that the Steelers offense is underrated doesn't mean that I think Pickett is like the guy.
But also, like, what's actionable about this? Do we think that the Steelers offense is going to, like, rebound in the second half of the season? Is this a sign that it's going to improve?
I think that they will improve as they face easier defenses, yes. But it's still very dependent on Pickens to make things happen. They've got to use more Jaylen Warren instead of Najee Harris. Najee Harris just never turned into the guy that they thought he was going to be. Right. The left tackle situation, right? I don't know when the rookie comes back, Broderick Jones, but I think Broderick Jones is better than Dan Moore.
Yeah, you have to. You really say, well, watching the plays, and I'm not this guy who really breaks down X's and O's anymore. There are so many plays where, like, what the heck is that even supposed to represent?
There's a lot of dead screens that don't really go anywhere.
Yeah, just like trying to flare the ball along the sidelines. There were a couple at the end. One was this sprint out. Like, Kenny Pickett is sprinting out left, and he just keeps sprinting out. It looks like he's running to the sidelines for a Gatorade at some point. And it's like, you had a sprint out where there wasn't a quick out where he could get the ball for 5 yards. And if you did have that, why didn't he hit that? Why couldn't he hit that? And then later on, it was like a third and forever, and he's not rushed. He's not less, but he just puts the ball to a covered guy, I think probably a covered Pickens on the sidelines. And like, there's no place else to go with the football except 20 yards down the field to a covered guy on the sideline. It's mind-boggling that that's what the Steelers offense is.
I forgot to check the interception-worthy throws before we came on the air. But it's possible that part of the reason why they have so few turnovers is that Pickett's been lucky.
A little bit.
Right? That it doesn't feel like he's throwing the ball to opponents less than other quarterbacks, but right. He is, right? I mean, you talked in the Messenger column about the idea that Cleveland designed an offense that was much more built around the fact that they couldn't trust their quarterback.
Yes.
Than Pittsburgh did.
Yeah, they've been doing this for weeks. So you look at this and like, okay, we're running a wildcat. We're running the ball in these situations. We're doing end arounds. By the way, the Steelers do try end arounds, and they don't work. It's really bizarre that they can't execute your basic, let's get the ball to Pickens and he can get us 10 yards, going up the sideline. They have a hard time doing that. There's this wrinkle where the Browns have a full, like a backup lineman as fullback, and they run the same little rollout play, and they get, 8 or 9 yards, and they move the sticks. They've been doing stuff like that for Walker. They did a little bit of it even for Watson. They've been doing it. They're good at that. Like this emergency milk the ball offense, they're doing it. The Steelers, I don't think, are trying that. The Steelers are actually trying to run a conventional offense. It just doesn't work very well, and that's where you get losses like this one.
Yeah, and I think they also they're still not good at play action. I don't understand this with the Steelers. This goes back to Roethlisberger. It's been this way through multiple quarterbacks and multiple coordinators that they don't use a lot of play action, and they're bad when they use it. And I don't understand why would that continue through multiple coordinators and multiple quarterbacks.
It's like they're bad at play action. They're bad at reverses. They're bad at screens. They run the ball okay now. They actually run the ball okay. But how can you be bad at all these things unless Tommy DeVito's involved? That should not be the case.
Right. Again, part of it is you're doing these things against Cleveland and Myles Garrett is eating you alive. But we'll see what happens when Pittsburgh. So if you look, I'm trying to look at Pittsburgh's schedule
Right.
the rest of the way. Let me bring up Pittsburgh's schedule the rest of the way as far as the defenses that they play.
Bengals are coming.
The Bengals are coming. Their defense is kind of average. Cardinals are a bad defense. Patriots are kind of average. Colts are kind of average. Bengals again. Seahawks, and then the Ravens. So it gets easier, but not that much easier. They don't play a lot. The only defense they play that's like a bad defense really is the Cardinals.
Right. And you say, well, they do get a
and
break.
Even they picked off C.J. Stroud 3 times this week. So.
They picked off C.J. Stroud because I said something nice about C.J. Stroud. That's what happened. That's what caused that. But yeah, that's what I get stuck on the Steelers. And it's like, well, we can opponent adjust. It seems like against an average defense, they're going to score 19. That's bad. That's bad. And it probably isn't enough against some of these opponents that are coming up.
All right. Let's talk about our biggest surprises of the week. What was your biggest surprise of week 11?
I'm sad it did not turn into a little victory, although I'm not rooting against the Lions. But I was happy to see Justin Fields come back after 4 games, play with a lot of confidence, play with a game plan that let him go out there and run the zone read and mix that in with zone read plays with passes off of it. Move the ball very efficiently against a good defense. And with the help of some Lions turnovers, put the Bears in position where they were up by 2 scores in the 4th quarter. I think if you look at Justin Fields over his last 4 or 5 starts, he's been average to a little above average when you factor in everything, the running and the passing and the avoiding of turnovers. And I think that bodes well for him moving forward, whether it's with the Bears, probably not, or with some team that says, we think this guy still has value. Let's make a move for him.
We are going to have some pretty interesting discussions come February and March and April about what the Bears are going to do.
Yes.
With Justin Fields. Are they going to draft Caleb Williams or Drake May, or are they going to keep Justin Fields and draft Marvin Harrison instead?
Right. And it'll be, the first question is who's coaching and who's GMing.
Yep.
Because I don't think Eberflus survives this. I mean, all the chaos, behind the scenes chaos and everything.
There's been a lot.
There's been a lot. That game is going to be hung on him because, again, they lead by 2 scores with 4 minutes left, and the Lions just coast down the field. And they coast down the field again. And then the game kind of gets weirdly out of hand in the final.
And again, it's similar to what's going on with the Chargers and Brandon Staley. It's a defensive-minded head coach who can't seem to build a defense.
Right. And they're putting resources into it, particularly in Chicago. They keep adding guys, and it's like, well, yeah, but the Lions are cruising on you when the game matters.
With Small Axe 58 asks, the Lions, is it what fortitude to come back? Or is it, oh my God, they almost lost to the Bears?
Divisional opponent, guy running the read option on you. He gets like this touchdown to DJ Moore, and it's beautiful where Justin Fields jab steps like he's about to scramble. You know what happens to the defense there. He puts it over their heads. A couple of things like that happen. The biggest question is Goff's turnovers. Goff had one of those Goff games.
Yep.
I say,
old school Goff game, right?
Goff
not,
games. Old school
Goff. Not a recent Goff game.
Right. That going to happen against, the Cowboys? Is that going to happen against?
Well, here's the problem with consistency. And I mean, this is the problem with the Buffalo Bills, right? If they do make the playoffs, which is, do you trust Goff to let's assume they don't get the number 1 seed. Do you trust Goff to put 4 of the good games together in a row?
Right. Against the Niners and the Cowboys and the Eagles in the playoffs. So that's what they'll have to do. But they're really safe to get there. And let's celebrate what the Lions are doing. They're really
this is the best Lions team in the history of DVOA, and like going back, they're like the best since like 1953 or something. I mean, it's just, I looked at the estimated DVOA that we used to have because somebody asked me about this, and there's 3 Lions teams from the 50s through the 70s that are higher than this year's Lions, but that's it. Like this year's Lions are one of the best Lions teams ever.
Wow.
Iceman says, although I have nothing against Fields, it is fair to point out that the Lions defense has looked pretty rough since week 7. So here we are like blowing accolades at the Lions, but yeah, their defense has been problematic. Iceman also thinks Goff will be in trouble against any teams that defend the middle of the field well. Hello, San Francisco.
Yeah. He doesn't have the super arm to scratch the itch, and they don't have the boundary receivers. They've got
They've got Amon-Ra St. Brown is what they've got.
Yes.
Jameson Williams is not, for whatever reasons, Jameson Williams has not really developed.
Can't catch
in the NFL. Well,
can't stay healthy.
He's got the speed, but and also couldn't play for the first few weeks of the season.
Right.
My big surprise of the week is Tommy DeVito.
Hey, Tommy DeVito! Pasta Vazoo, Gabagool.
Three passing touchdowns, although, it helped that the receivers made some great plays for him. And he did take 137 sacks.
Yes.
9, actually. But we did have the Giants as the worst team in the league by a good amount. And they went out and beat Washington. And, Washington has now lost to this Giants team twice. I tweeted out, this might be the worst Giants team ever. And Washington has lost to them twice. And then I went back and looked at pre-DVOA Giants teams, and this isn't even close to the worst Giants teams.
Ever. Oh no, the 70s are amazing for the Giants.
My God, the 70s and are horrifying. Oh,
yeah. Wow. Yeah, Joe Pisarcik at quarterback, and
a 112 in 1 year. And
my God, yeah.
So yeah, that's my surprise of the week is Tommy DeVito had a game. I still would rather have Kenny Pickett, honestly, than Tommy DeVito. But yes. Tommy DeVito had a game.
Yes.
What was your yes, I was right moment of the week?
I just want to say it is scary because 3rd and 10, DeVito occasionally completes that 15-yard pass. Now, part of it is the Commanders forget to cover people from time to time, but it's if Pickett did that once, we're talking about the Steelers overcoming the Browns.
That's true. But Pickett also didn't take 9 sacks, and he was facing Myles Garrett.
I was right. The sustainability of what the Minnesota Vikings are doing, and I think we're going to talk about them in a minute. Where win expectancy.
Well, let's talk about them now because this was the only reverse post-game win expectancy game of the week by a tiny amount. It had the Vikings by 52.5%, so it was basically a 50-50 game.
I'm surprised at that because they spent a lot of this game handing the ball to the Broncos in different ways and then managing to make sure that the Broncos only get a field goal, which has kind of been what the Vikings have done. That Falcons game, the Josh Dobbs arrival game was, we fumbled at the 5-yard line, but it was only a field goal because Arthur Smith wanted to run the double reverse to Jonnu Smith or whatever. So that was happening again in this game. And you look at the second half, first half of the offense, I was like, oh my God, Josh Dobbs is like Tim Tebow 2.0 mixed with whatever. And then you started to see it fall apart in the second half. I think he was 9 of 19. He threw an interception. They were just having a hard time moving the ball. They needed fake punts and things like that to move the ball. And I'm not saying the Vikings aren't a playoff team because I know you got the odds there. But the sustainability of this sort of team of destiny run is not there.
This is the NFC, man. They still make the playoffs in 77% of simulations.
Holy cow.
Because who else is making it in the NFC besides Minnesota and Seattle? Yeah. And whoever loses the NFC East.
And I was on Vancouver radio. I think you do that show too.
Occasionally.
And they were talking about, the Seahawks, they take the loss yesterday. Geno Smith's a little banged up. They got Niners, Eagles, Niners, the sandwich coming up. And they could be 6-8 soon. And the question was, will they still be the second or third team or the third team for the wild card if they lose 3 straight?
Yeah.
And they might be.
Probably.
It's amazing. Go Commanders.
The Broncos, and here's the difference between the conferences. Broncos only make the playoffs in 12% of simulations because they're not good in DVOA.
Right.
And they have the 11th hardest schedule. And there's just too much competition in the AFC.
Right. The one thing they have going for them is now you've got the Bills and Chiefs. The Bills could be a tiebreaker down the road. And they're only 2-4 in the AFC, but if they keep going, if they say sweep the Chargers, which I think is possible, they might be in a place to have decent tiebreakers. But the defense has gone back to the defense we thought we would see from the Broncos, I think.
Yes. Right. It's funny. They were so bad in the first 5 games that I think they're still 32nd.
Wow.
Because those first 5 games were so bad, but they're not. They're like 8th or 9th since then or something. So
right. That is stunning. But yeah, they're like a top 15, top 10 defense now. Yeah. And the offense, again, in a league full of Panthers and Giants, and Patriots, Russell Wilson going out there and leading field goal drives is not that bad. I mean, it's not great, but it's something that could squeak them up towards the playoffs. Again, 12%, I know that, but the Chargers flatline, a couple of things go right for them. They put themselves in the position to do that. You're right. Oh my God, they're still 32nd.
Yeah.
That's unreal.
Yeah, just because of those first 5 games. That's how bad that first 5 games. Part of it is because as Miami struggles on offense, the Denver defense in the 70-point game looks even worse.
Oh, wow.
Because Miami is not the powerful super offense we thought they were early in the season.
Wow. Look at the Chargers at 29th, LOL. Unbelievable. Okay.
I mean, again, the Chargers, right? That's the thing about Staley is people want to talk about fourth downs. The biggest problem with Staley is the man is supposed to be a defensive genius, and they can't play defense.
Right. He can't play defense, and he can never decide what he's doing on fourth down.
If he's being aggressive or not, he can't decide which he is.
Ultra aggressive or ultra conservative. Not that 4th and 2 at midfield. This is my time. It's just completely random.
Counting up the DVOA top 10, I'm going to do the top 12 because 11 and 12 are, I think, interesting.
All right.
Number 12 is Houston.
Nice. Big
right?
Team win.
Doesn't it feel like they're a team of destiny? I mean, the destiny is to lose in the first round, but still the fact that they're even going to get there is pretty amazing.
When you say it that way, we're all something of destiny because we're all destined to do something.
I mean, it's amazing. The Houston thing is kind of amazing.
Good team win. Stroud struggles, starts making rookie mistakes.
Defense plays well, and they pull it off. Absolutely.
D'Amico.
Arizona is a different team with Kyler Murray at quarterback. They are a better team.
They are. Shockingly.
Number 11, the team we talked about a few minutes ago, that's very controversial DVOA at this point, Pittsburgh.
All right.
I mean, average on offense, good on defense.
Right. I kind of think of them as very good on defense and just better than the muck on offense. But, they got the wins. They still have the wins.
And it's interesting because, I lowered the importance of turnovers in the new version of DVOA.
Okay.
And the Steelers are still good on offense primarily because of schedule and because of lack of turnovers.
Wow.
Number 10, Philadelphia. We've talked about feeling like this is too low, but, tonight we'll see.
Yes.
We're going to see. Number 9, passing Philadelphia is Jacksonville.
Okay, big win.
Number 8, Cleveland. Defense. Number 7, Miami.
Okay, their defense has come around.
Number 6, Dallas.
Yeah.
And number 5, I forgot to do my I was right. 5 is Buffalo. My I was right is, oh, look, Buffalo had another huge win because they're Buffalo and they do this and they're number 1 in the league in variance. And
yes,
when they get it together, they are dominant. And then when they don't, they lose by 3 points.
They don't. They got a tough schedule coming up. They got the Eagles next week. Cowboys are in a cream puff schedule right now where it's hard to say anything about them. They're out there. We got the Giants. We got the Panthers. I think they got 1 or 2 more jokes coming. Well, they got the Commanders in 3 days. So yeah.
Number 3, Kansas City.
Yeah.
Number 2, up slightly, San Francisco.
I thought they'd be 1.
And number 1, down slightly. But still number 1 is Baltimore.
And DVOA does not know that Joe Burrow got hurt in the middle of that game.
No, it doesn't. But the opponent adjustments for Cincinnati are half based on the bad Joe Burrow games anyway. So
right,
it's not really giving the Ravens a big bump for playing Cincinnati because it looks at Cincinnati and it sees the earlier games when Burrow wasn't playing well and sees Cincinnati as kind of an average team.
Okay.
All right, let's do it. Let's talk about it. The Chiefs and the Eagles, Monday Night Football, the big Super Bowl rematch. Both teams probably make the playoffs. So if the Chiefs win, they win the Super Bowl did I skip Detroit? EJ McGlynn asks if I skipped Detroit. I did. Detroit is 4th. Yes, Detroit is 4th. Yep.
Awesome. Whoops.
With a fairly big gap between the top 2 and Kansas City, and then another fairly big gap between Kansas City and everyone else.
Wow. Okay. So it's like bang, Chiefs, bang.
Yeah. Yeah. The top 2 are tight, then the Chiefs, and then everyone else.
All right.
So if the Chiefs win, they make the Super Bowl in 19% of Sims and 6% for the Eagles.
Okay.
If the Eagles win, it's 15% for the Chiefs and 8% for the Eagles.
All right. And these percentages are combined partially the quality of the team, but also what happens in terms of all the playoff stuff.
Talks about the schedule. It's about the schedule and about what the current Dave ratings are. And, for the Chiefs, a little bit, the fact that we like the Ravens so much means that they have more competition at the end, once they get to the AFC Championship game, because in a lot of the AFC Championship games, they face the Ravens, and we have the Ravens really high. And the Eagles, we just have lower, although again, I think ESPN FPI has the Eagles 7th. So we're not the only advanced metric that doesn't have the Eagles at the top of the league this year. And Brian Knowles points out that field conditions should be a little bit better this time around.
A little less slipping and sliding. What's done is done. It's all in the past. But yeah, it's Arrowhead. They know how to take care of business there.
So what is your sort of initial thought about this game?
The biggest problem when you watch an Eagles game is watching opponents throw the ball at will, usually towards the person in the slot, not necessarily the slot receiver, but whoever got put there. It was CeeDee Lamb, you move Dotson over there, or maybe you move McLaurin in there, or it's the tight end, etc. Most of the other things that the Eagles defense needs to do, they have to do well. So, my question for the Chiefs becomes, who's going to be working the middle? Probably Travis Kelce, newsflash, but then who else? And who's going to be covering who? The Eagles get a little bit of a break. It looks like Bradley Roby is back to be their number 3 corner. Okay. Bradley Roby is not really good anymore, but the guys who were in place with him were undrafted rookies and all, and they were weaker. And my question is, does Roby cover Kelce? And I think he has some experience doing that because he was with the
Denver Broncos, right?
Yeah. Or is it going to be possibly Byard? And is this the role that Byard was sort of signed?
One of the reasons why they brought Byard in was for this game and or the Super Bowl to cover Kelce. I mean, the Eagles are dead last in DVOA against tight ends.
Right. But then my next question is, okay, Kelce goes 10, 131.
What does everybody else do?
Correct. What does everybody else do? And this is where the Eagles tend to be able to stop those, if it's not a slot dude, they tend to be able to stop them, and the slot dudes for the Chiefs tend to stop themselves.
And I will say both offenses are better when the opposition is in nickel or dime.
Okay.
So I think you'll see a lot of 3 receiver sets. The Chiefs offense has been better in 12 personnel this year, but the Eagles defense has been better against 12 personnel. So
yeah,
that's a strength against strength right there.
And I'm trying to figure out what the Eagles will do without Goddard. Last year, they were without Goddard for 5 games, and they just kind of scattered the targets around. It was a little bit to Quez.
Yeah, it's not a lot of – I don't think you'll see a lot of Stoll or Calcaterra.
No. It's going to be a thing where there's a design screen for them as sort of a surprise, so to speak. And, that's probably going to make things easier for the Chiefs defensively because, again, you talk about 3 receiver sets for the Eagles. The third receiver is technically Julio Jones, but, he has done nothing. It's Zacchaeus. Or it might be it might be Covey. It might be the return man. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of him.
The interesting dominant thing for the Eagles here is their offensive line against the Chiefs' defensive front. The ESPN win rate stats are really different. The Eagles are 5th pass blocking and 1st run blocking. The Chiefs are 27th in pass rush and 31st in run stop. Hello, DeAndre Swift.
That's one of the things I like about the Eagles in this game is that advantage you say right there. And the fact that the Eagles in the past have said, if we can run the ball, we're just going to run the ball.
See, that I will say that the idea that the Chiefs have improved in pass rush goes against what the ESPN win rate stats say, because Bill Houston says, can the Eagles cope with an improved Chiefs secondary and pass rush? Mm-hmm. And can the Chiefs offensive line play up to the level they did in the Super Bowl? And I don't know how much the Chiefs pass rush has really improved. Their secondary is, those guys, those second-year guys have all really come into their own this year. It's been really good. The Chiefs O-line, I think part of how they played in the Super Bowl is just Mahomes. It's just Mahomes' ability to be smart with the ball.
Mahomes' ability to be smart with the ball, that feeling that Gannon and the Eagles defense had that Mahomes was hurt. and they start, and he wasn't really, or he was, but it didn't matter because he was still moving around, and like that led to like some over aggressive mistakes along the way. But you're right. I mean, the Chiefs pass rush, I would say it's improved a little bit. I don't think it's a dangerous pass rush. It's not like, you got to stop George Karlaftis. That's not really what you're up against. The Eagles,
you have to stop Chris Jones.
You have to stop Chris Jones. You got your own Kelsey who can help with that.
You've got Juergens back.
We do have Juergens back. So yeah, there's a lot there. If they find a way to cover Smitty and cover AJ Brown, like who else is getting open? That's the question.
Well, that's Chris Rojas says, is the replacement level receiver against the Eagles or against the Eagles or for the Eagles? Oh, I guess against the Eagles because of their problems in the slot. Similar to the red shirts in Star Trek, 5 targets, 2 catches, 30 yards, and killed by a photon torpedo.
Well, that's the Chief. That sounds like the Chiefs receivers this year.
Sky Moore.
Lieutenant Moore, go search for the Romulans behind that rock over there. He's gone.
I like both the Chiefs minus 2.5.
Okay.
And I'll go with DVOA, and I like over 46.5 because I think between the Eagles' pass defense secondary and the Chiefs' run defense, I think both of these offenses are going to be able to move the ball, and they'll both play at a faster pace than usual because neither team is going to have a big lead in the fourth quarter.
Right. Now, I am riding with the Eagles. I kind of think this is a good matchup for them because you need to have a couple of wide receivers in addition to your tight end that are scary. Like kind of like the Commanders, right? Frankly, the Commanders went out there. It's like, oh my God, we have no way of covering Dotson. The Chiefs don't even have a Dotson.
Right.
In terms of the over, now I just checked this out. I love the first half over, which is 22.5, because the Chiefs outscore their opponents 155-60 in first halves. They come out to hot starts. They also will give up some points in those first halves. In the second halves, the Chiefs have been outscored 53-74. They let opponents come back a little bit. They seem to get a little flat. They do that weird thing the Chiefs do where they make it
take their foot off the gas, right? We've talked about it for years now.
Yeah, or get over aggressive. Like, we're not taking our foot off the gas. We're stomping on it and we're stalling, however that works. So if I'm taking the over, I'll take the first half over. I think both teams will come out smoking. You win that, then you don't worry about the final score if it turns into like a battle of goal line stands at the end.
Yeah. All right. So we take different views. I'm on the Chiefs. He's on the Eagles. It should be an awesome game anyway. Best Monday Night Football game of the year. So I'm looking forward to it. Don't forget, again, to join us Wednesday morning. We will do our week 12. That's an interesting question. Andrew Daly says, what about the fact that nearly every primetime game goes under? I think that's probably a fluke.
There's a lot of Jets games in primetime this year. That's under sauce. But my first half bet, I think, insulates you a little bit because if this game turns mucky at the end, you got a little
yeah, I don't, because the question about the fact that nearly every primetime game goes under is what is it about primetime games that would make that happen?
One would be Thursday night.
Thursday night that's the one thing I can think of.
The other thing I can think of is the Jets. The amount
I'm not thinking about the teams that have been involved. I'm thinking, what is there about Sunday night and Monday night? Sunday night is regular rest. Monday night is an extra day of rest. Like, right. I don't feel like there's anything about Sunday night or Monday night that would make those games go under. It's just the teams that have been involved this year. And I think a little bit of it's the Thursday thing. Right.
I think the Thursday thing does have a lot to do with it. But I think if you look at the amount of times it's been an injured quarterback or a team, without their expected quarterback, I think that's been making a difference.
All right. Now I will close it up and say, everybody enjoy the game tonight. And again, we're going to be here Wednesday at 11 a.m. Wednesday at 11 a.m. to preview Week 12 in the NFL. Not Thursday this week, Wednesday this week. So thank you so much for watching the Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast. I am Aaron Schatz of FTN Network. He is Mike Tanier of The Messenger. And we will see you Wednesday morning to talk about Week 12 in the NFL. So long, everyone.